The private jet lurched violently, and my champagne glass shattered against the mahogany table. Through the window, lightning split the sky like a white-hot blade. "We're experiencing severe turbulence," the pilot's voice crackled over the intercom. "Return to your seats immediately." I gripped the armrest, my knuckles bone-white. Across the cabin, Kieran Wolf didn't move. He sat perfectly still in his leather seat, his jaw carved from granite, his ice-blue eyes fixed on his laptop as if the plane wasn't being tossed like a toy in a child's fist. Of course, nothing rattled the Wolf of Wall Street. Not failing engines, not plummeting altitudes, not the junior executive who'd spent 3 years as invisible as air in his shadow. "Mayday! Mayday!" The pilot's voice cut off. The world tilted sideways. Metal screamed. My body slammed against the harness. Then everything went black. Pain dragged me back to consciousness. Cold, wet, the smell of jet fuel and snow. "Don't move." His voice cut through the ringing in my ears. I opened my eyes to find Kieran Wolf crouched beside me in the wreckage, his $1,000 suit torn and stained with blood. A gash ran along his cheekbone, but his hands were steady as they moved across my shoulders, my ribs, checking for breaks with clinical precision. "I'm okay," I managed, though my voice shook. "You have a concussion." He continued his assessment, those pale eyes sweeping over me with an intensity I'd never experienced. "The pilot's dead. We're somewhere in the Canadian Rockies. No radio, no signal." The words should have terrified me. Instead, I focused on the heat of his hands through my soaked blouse, on the way he said "we" instead of talking around me like I didn't exist. I was Mara Chen, junior analyst, invisible. The woman he'd never once looked at directly in 3 years of quarterly reports and late-night strategy sessions. He was Kieran Wolf, billionaire, ruthless. The man whose empire was built on ice and iron will. "Can you stand?" he asked. I nodded and he helped me up. His grip was firm, his body close enough that I caught his scent beneath the smoke. Leather and pine, and something darkly magnetic that made my breath catch. We were alone in the wilderness, and something in the way his hand lingered on my waist told me everything was about to change. Chapter 2. Into the Storm. The blizzard hit an hour after we started walking. Kieran had salvaged what he could from the wreckage: emergency supplies, a waterproof lighter, his coat, which he'd immediately draped over my shoulders. Now we fought through hip-deep snow, my legs burning with every step, my lungs screaming in the thin mountain air. "There!" He pointed to a dark shape through the white curtain of snow. "Cave! Move!" He pulled me forward, his arm around my waist, half carrying me the last 50 yards. We stumbled into the shallow cave just as the wind reached a howling crescendo. Inside, the world narrowed to darkness and the sound of our ragged breathing. Kieran worked quickly, efficiently, building a fire with the emergency kit. When the flames finally caught, casting golden light across the stone walls, I saw him clearly for the first time since the crash. Blood matted his dark hair, his suit jacket hung in tatters. But his eyes, those ice-blue eyes that had never once softened in boardroom meetings, burned with fierce determination as they swept over me. "You're shaking," he said, his voice rougher than I'd ever heard it. "I'm freezing." He stripped off his ruined jacket and shirt, revealing a muscled torso marked with scars I'd never imagined existed beneath his tailored suits. Then he moved behind me, his fingers finding the zipper of my soaked blouse. "I need to get you out of these wet clothes," he said, and there was something in his voice, something strained and carefully controlled, that made my heart hammer. You'll die of hypothermia otherwise. I should have protested, should have maintained some professional distance, but my teeth were chattering too hard to speak, and his hands were already peeling away the frozen layers with gentle efficiency. When I was down to my camisole and he'd wrapped emergency blankets around us both, he pulled me against his chest. The heat of him was devastating. I gasped, and his arms tightened reflexively. Body heat, he said, as if explaining to himself. It's the fastest way to warm up. But the tremor in his voice told me he felt it too. This electric current that had always hummed beneath our professional interactions, now amplified by proximity and peril into something impossible to ignore. Kieran, I whispered, and felt his breath catch. Don't. His voice was strained. Don't say my name like that, Mara. Not when I've spent 3 years trying not to notice the way you bite your lip when you're concentrating. Not when I've memorized the sound of your laugh, even though you've never once laughed for me. I turned in his arms, shocked. You noticed me? His jaw clenched. I've done nothing but notice you. Every day, every meeting, every time you walked past my office, I had to stop myself from calling you in just to hear you speak. Then why? Because I'm your boss. Because mixing business and personal is a disaster. Because... He stopped, his eyes dropping to my lips. Because I knew if I ever let myself touch you, I wouldn't be able to stop. The firelight danced between us. Outside, the storm raged, and in this moment, suspended between the life we'd known and whatever came next, I made my choice. I kissed him. Chapter 3. Burning Through Ice. Kieran went rigid for half a heartbeat. Then he groaned against my mouth and kissed me back with a hunger that stole my breath. His hands tangled in my hair, tilting my head back as he deepened the kiss. I tasted desperation and 3 years of denial, felt it in the way his fingers trembled as they traced my jaw, my throat, the curve of my shoulder. When we broke apart, both gasping, his forehead pressed against mine. Mara. My name was a prayer and a warning. If we do this, if we cross this line... I want to cross it, I said. I've wanted to cross it since the first day I walked into your office and you looked at me like I was a problem you couldn't solve. Something fierce flashed in his eyes. You were. You are. The most impossible problem I've ever faced. He cupped my face with both hands, his thumb stroking my cheekbones. How do I keep my hands off something I'm not supposed to want? How do I maintain control when every instinct screams at me to claim you? Then claim me. I pulled him closer, feeling the hard planes of his chest against me. We might not survive this, Kieran. The cold, the altitude, the fact that no one knows where we are. So if this is all we get, one night, one moment of truth before the end, I don't want to waste it pretending. He studied my face in the firelight, those ice blue eyes searching for doubt. Finding none, he lowered his mouth to mine again. This time, there was no hesitation. His kisses moved from my lips to my jaw, down the column of my throat. I arched into him, gasping as his teeth grazed my pulse point. 3 years, he murmured against my skin. 3 years of watching you, wanting you, imagining what you'd taste like, what sounds you'd make. His hands mapped my body with reverent intensity, learning every curve through the thin fabric of my camisole. When his palm slid beneath the hem, finding bare skin, we both shuddered. You're so warm, I breathed, my fingers exploring the muscled expanse of his back. And you're perfect. He pulled back to look at me, his pupils blown wide with desire. Tell me what you want, Mara, because I need to hear you say it. I want you. My voice was steady despite my racing heart. I want all of you, the ruthless CEO and the man beneath the armor. I want to know what it feels like to be seen by you, touched by you, claimed by you. He made a sound low in his throat, part growl, part surrender, and claimed my mouth again. We came together in the firelight, the emergency blankets cocooning us in warmth as the storm raged outside. Kieran's touches were by turns gentle and fierce, reverent and demanding. He took his time, drawing sounds from me I'd never made before, whispering my name like an incantation. When we finally joined, moving together in the ancient rhythm, it felt like coming home and discovering a new world all at once. Afterward, we lay tangled together, the fire burning low beside us. Kieran's fingers traced lazy patterns on my bare shoulder. What happens when we get rescued? I asked. His arms tightened around me. If we get rescued. When? You don't strike me as a man who gives up easily. A ghost of a smile touched his lips. No, I don't. He turned to face me fully, his expression serious. When we get back, everything changes. I won't pretend this didn't happen. I won't go back to ignoring you in meetings and lying to myself about what I feel. What do you feel? He cupped my face, his thumb tracing my lower lip. Everything. Terror that I'll wake up and this will have been a dream. Relief that I finally touched you. Rage that it took a plane crash to give me permission to stop fighting this. His eyes blazed into mine. And love, Mara. I feel love. It's not rational or convenient or professional, but it's real. My throat tightened with emotion. I love you too. I think I have since that first day, even though you terrified me. Good. He kissed me softly. Because you terrify me. You make me feel things I've spent my entire adult life avoiding. Vulnerability, need, the terrifying knowledge that if something happened to you, it would destroy me. Then we survive together, I said. We get through this, and we figure out what comes next. Together. Together, he agreed, and sealed it with a kiss. Chapter 4. The Miracle of Dawn. I woke to weak sunlight filtering through the cave entrance and the smell of smoke. Kieran crouched by a small fire, feeding it carefully with wood he must have gathered at dawn. He'd found his torn shirt and pulled it on, and the sight of him, disheveled, bloodied, but unbowed, made my heart clench. He turned, sensing my gaze, and his expression softened in a way I'd never seen before. Morning, he said, crossing to kneel beside me. His hand brushed hair back from my face with a tenderness that made my eyes sting. How do you feel? Sore. Hungry. Alive. All good signs. He helped me sit up, wrapping one of the emergency blankets around my shoulders. The storm's passed. I did some reconnaissance while you slept. There's a stream about 100 yards down, and I found what looks like a game trail. Which means what? We start hiking? We start surviving. His jaw tightened. No one's coming for us, Mara. The crash site is buried under 3 feet of fresh snow. The emergency beacon was destroyed. We're on our own. The weight of those words settled between us. Alone, miles from civilization, in terrain that killed experienced mountaineers. Okay, I said, surprised by the steadiness in my own voice. Then we survive. You tell me what to do, and I'll do it. Something flickered in his eyes. Approval, pride, maybe even surprise. You're not panicking. Would it help? No. Then I won't waste the energy. I stood, wincing as my muscles protested. What's first? Over the next hours, I discovered a side of Kieran Wolf I'd never imagined existed. The ruthless billionaire who'd built an empire through cold calculation became someone entirely different in the wilderness. He moved with quiet competence, showing me how to purify water using fabric and sunlight, how to identify edible plants among the snow-covered vegetation, how to build a shelter that would protect us from the elements. How do you know all this? I asked, as he demonstrated making cordage from plant fibers. My grandfather. His hands worked steadily, twisting and nodding. He was old-school survival. Took me camping in places that would make your corporate retreat look like a 5-star hotel. He died when I was 16. I thought all those skills were useless in the world I was building. Turns out, they're the only things keeping us alive. He'd be proud of you. Kieran looked up sharply. Would he? I spent 20 years building an empire, crushing competitors, caring about nothing but the bottom line. I became everything he warned me against. And yet, when it mattered, when the plane went down, you didn't think about your company or your wealth. You thought about keeping me alive. I moved closer, taking his hand. That's who you really are, Kieran. Not the wolf everyone fears. The man who builds fires and purifies water and looks at me like I matter more than any quarterly report. His throat worked as he swallowed. You do matter. More than anything. He pulled me against him, his embrace fierce. I'm going to get you out of here, Mara. I promise you that. We're going to get each other out, I corrected. Partners, remember? Partners, he agreed, and kissed me like a vow. Chapter 5. The Test. The bear came on our third day. We'd made good progress, following the game trail through a valley of towering pines. Kieran had fashioned a crude spear from a branch, and I carried our meager supplies in a pack made from his suit jacket. The afternoon was warm, the sun brilliant on the snow, and for a moment I let myself believe we might actually make it. Then Kieran stopped dead, his hand shooting out to halt me. Don't move, he breathed. I saw it then. A massive grizzly, perhaps 50 yards ahead on the trail. It was digging at something in the snow, its brown fur silvered with frost, muscles rippling beneath its hide. My heart thundered against my ribs. Every instinct screamed at me to run. Kieran's hand found mine, squeezing hard. Slowly, he whispered. Back away slowly. Don't run. Never run. We took one step backward, then another. The bear's head snapped up. For a frozen moment, we all stood still. Then the bear charged. Get behind me! Kieran shoved me backward and raised the spear, making himself as large as possible. Get back! Go! No! I grabbed a fallen branch, my hands shaking but my voice steady. We stand together! The bear closed the distance with terrifying speed. 20 yards, 10. Kieran didn't back down. He stood his ground, shouting, jabbing with the spear, every line of his body radiating protective fury. At the last moment, the bear swerved aside, crashing past us into the forest. We stood there, gasping. Kieran's spear still raised, my branch clutched in white-knuckled hands. Then he turned and pulled me into his arms, crushing me against his chest. "Don't ever do that again," he said roughly into my hair. "When I tell you to run, I told you, we survive together or not at all." I pulled back to look at him, my hands framing his face. "You're not sacrificing yourself for me, Kieran. That's not how this works." "The hell it isn't." His eyes blazed. "If something happened to you, if I lost you..." "You won't." I kissed him fiercely. "You won't lose me because I'm not going anywhere without you." He kissed me back with desperate intensity, his hands tangling in my hair. When we finally broke apart, we were both trembling. "You're insane," he said, but there was wonder in his voice. "I learned from the best." I managed a shaky smile. "Now, can we please get away from here before that bear changes its mind?" Chapter 6. Breaking Point. We found the cabin on day 5, when I'd begun to lose hope. It appeared through the trees like a mirage, a small structure of weathered logs, smoke curling from a stone chimney. I actually stopped and blinked, certain exhaustion was making me hallucinate. "Is that real?" I whispered. Kieran's arm tightened around my waist. He'd been supporting half my weight for the last mile. "It's real." An old man emerged as we approached, rifle in hand but eyes kind. He took one look at us and lowered the weapon. "Plane crash?" he asked simply. "5 days ago," Kieran confirmed. "Come in. I'll radio for help." The next hours passed in a blur of warmth and food, and the old man, Jack, he told us, making radio contact with search and rescue. We sat huddled together on a worn sofa, Kieran's arm around me, neither of us willing to break contact. "Helicopter's coming at dawn," Jack said finally, hanging up the radio. "They'll take you to Banff. From there, you can get wherever you need to go." "Thank you," I managed, my voice thick with emotion. That night, in the small bedroom Jack offered us, Kieran and I lay tangled together in a real bed for the first time. "Tomorrow everything changes," I said quietly. "Yes." His fingers traced my spine beneath the borrowed shirt I wore. "Tomorrow, we go back to the real world. Press conferences, investigations, your family asking questions. Your board of directors losing their minds when they find out the CEO is in love with a junior analyst." He turned to face me fully, his expression fierce. "I don't care. Let them lose their minds. Let the whole world speculate and gossip and condemn. You're mine now, Mara, and I'm yours. That's the only truth that matters." "They'll make me quit. They'll say it's inappropriate, that there's a power imbalance. Then I'll make you VP of Strategic Development. Equal footing, equal power." His thumb traced my lower lip. "I will burn my entire empire to the ground before I give you up. Do you understand? The company, the reputation, the fortune, none of it means anything without you." Tears stung my eyes. "Kieran." "I mean it. These past 5 days taught me something I should have learned years ago. Success without someone to share it with is just another form of freezing to death. Slower maybe, but just as fatal." He pulled me closer. "You warmed something in me I thought was dead, Mara. I'm not going back to that ice." "Then we face them together," I said. "Whatever comes. Your board, my family, the whole corporate world. We face it together." "Together," he agreed, and sealed it with a kiss that tasted of promise and forever. Chapter 7. Return. The helicopter arrived at dawn, its rotors thundering over the valley like Judgment Day. Kieran held my hand as we lifted off, neither of us looking back. Below, the wilderness that had tested us disappeared into a patchwork of white and green. "Ready?" he asked, his fingers laced through mine. "For what?" "Everything. The media, the questions, the battle." I squeezed his hand. "With you? I'm ready for anything." 3 months later, I stood in Kieran's office, our office now since he'd made good on his promise to promote me. The city sprawled below us, glittering with late afternoon sun. He came up behind me, his arms circling my waist, his chin resting on my shoulder. "Any regrets?" he murmured. I leaned back into him, feeling the solid strength that had carried me through the wilderness. "Only that it took a plane crash to make you notice me." His low laugh rumbled through his chest. "I noticed you from day one, Mara. I was just too much of a coward to do anything about it." I turned in his arms, finding those ice-blue eyes that now looked at me with open adoration. "And now?" "Now I'm brave enough to love you in front of the whole world." He cupped my face, his thumb tracing my cheekbone. "Brave enough to admit that building an empire means nothing if I can't share it with you. Brave enough to choose happiness over reputation." "The board's still furious about our relationship," I pointed out. "Let them be furious. They'll get over it or they'll leave. Either way, I'm not giving you up." I rose on my toes and kissed him, soft and slow and full of promise. Outside, the world continued its relentless spin. Somewhere, planes still flew through storms. Somewhere, people still played it safe, choosing security over passion, reputation over love. But here, in this moment, we were exactly where we belonged, together, unbreakable, forever changed by the wilderness that had stripped away everything except the truth. Some hearts are meant to burn for each other, no matter how frozen they once were. The ice had shattered, and what rose from those broken pieces was stronger, fiercer, and more beautiful than anything we'd built alone. The end. Whatever comes, your board, my family, the whole corporate world, we face it together. Together, he agreed, and sealed it with a kiss that tasted of promise and forever. Chapter 7. Return. The helicopter arrived at dawn, its rotors thundering over the valley like Judgment Day. Kieran held my hand as we lifted off, neither of us looking back. Below, the wilderness that had tested us disappeared into a patchwork of white and green. "Ready?" he asked, his fingers laced through mine. "For what?" "Everything. The media, the questions, the battle." I squeezed his hand. "With you? I'm ready for anything." 3 months later, I stood in Kieran's office, our office now since he'd made good on his promise to promote me. The city sprawled below us, glittering with late afternoon sun. He came up behind me, his arms circling my waist, his chin resting on my shoulder. "Any regrets?" he murmured. I leaned back into him, feeling the solid strength that had carried me through the wilderness. "Only that it took a plane crash to make you notice me." His low laugh rumbled through his chest. "I noticed you from day one, Mara. I was just too much of a coward to do anything about it." I turned in his arms, finding those ice-blue eyes that now looked at me with open adoration. "And now?" "Now I'm brave enough to love you in front of the whole world." He cupped my face, his thumb tracing my cheekbone. "Brave enough to admit that building an empire means nothing if I can't share it with you. Brave enough to choose happiness over reputation." "The board's still furious about our relationship," I pointed out. "Let them be furious. They'll get over it or they'll leave. Either way, I'm not giving you up." I rose on my toes and kissed him, soft and slow and full of promise. Outside, the world continued its relentless spin. Somewhere, planes still flew through storms. Somewhere, people still played it safe, choosing security over passion, reputation over love. But here, in this moment, we were exactly where we belonged, together, unbreakable, forever changed by the wilderness that had stripped away everything except the truth. Some hearts are meant to burn for each other, no matter how frozen they once were. The ice had shattered, and what rose from those broken pieces was stronger, fiercer, and more beautiful than anything we'd built alone. The end.